Thank you very much, Peter, for your talk. About the misconceptions around the encyclical, how do we respond to the misconceptions that somehow the Catholic Church is condemning the use of fossil fuels or industrial technology? Because there's no doubt that the industrial revolutions, which the Catholic Church reminds us can be used for good, industrial technology can be used for good. It's helped millions and millions of people, probably more than that, across the world come out of poverty. So how do we respond to the argument that we're not against the use of every kind of economic technology, we're just wanting those things to be viewed in the proper way?
Excellent question, because especially the Industrial Revolution reference is an important one, because Leo XIII, way back in the 1890s, he's doing the typical Catholic thing, and it's about 100 years behind history. But he's responding to the Industrial Revolution because of its effect on families. So he's not against the progress, he's not against the economical benefits, but what he's against is the devastating effect it's had on families. And the Catholic Church has never stood against anything in particular because of the political or economic implications, unless there is a moral problem. And that's the issue, really. It's the same with the environment. One of the big things that Francis does is points out that most of the time, the price that has to be paid for abuse of the environment is paid by the poorer nations, the poorer people, not us who are doing most of the abusing. And out of sight, out of mind a little bit for us. And unfortunately, the same problem that happened in the Industrial Revolution is happening now, that most of the damage is not me happening to accidentally miss the recycle bin with my piece of paper and getting in the main bin. Most of the damage is done by a whole system which idolises profit margins and will absolutely cut through and devastate the environment just to make sure I'm getting a better profit margin than everything else. Don't get me started on the stock market, because I think that's actually endemic evil, precisely because if one company does that, all of them have to do it kind of to keep up, otherwise the investors drop off. Because the profit is the only measure of success in our current society, in terms of the top-end companies. It gets very dangerous because all other moral issues go by the by. So I think Francis would answer and say, all for progress. In fact, he does say it. Let's go with this. It's been unbelievable progress, particularly medically and in many respects. But just as medical progress is a good thing, medical techniques to get there, we can't just say, oh, it's all for progress. We all know the story about the Nazi doctors who froze people to death in order to learn about hypothermia. Now, we still use that knowledge. It's good knowledge, but we wouldn't advocate that method. So I think he would just say moral use of resources, which respects, firstly, the human being, family, the environment in which we live. He keeps calling out our home, because that's the attitude he wants.
A few questions here in the middle.
Peter, I heard some commentary from someone who'd actually taken time to read the document, and one of the things they said was missing from the document was the connection, making a connection between contraception and environmental damage. So I don't know whether that's correct, whether that was something you may have picked up, or whether this person has just got their pet issue and is going crazy with it.
Well, in spite of what's been said about the document, Francis does mention. I feel really casual calling him Francis, by the way. Pope Francis, the Pope does mention certain predominant ideas and theories about the damage that we're doing. He doesn't, however, come down and say, this one is true, that one's not, this one's to worry about. He simply says, the mounting evidence is, we're doing a lot of damage to the environment. You might have been talking about, for instance, the fish off the coast of Japan or something like that, where there's so many contraceptives going through the water system in Japan that some of the fish, species of fish all around Japan, where the water's been washed, are all changing sex. Because the estrogen being pumped, or whatever the chemical is, the hormone is being pumped into the water, is actually damaging. And think about it, if it's doing that to the fish, what's it doing to us? There's all kinds of things, especially in recycled water systems, that are affecting us that we have no knowledge of what they're doing. This doesn't seem to be a moral imperative Like, we almost have to find out that some damaging carcinogen is affecting us before we force the company to put a label on saying warning may cause death, you know, something like that. There is, in fact, paragraph 50 actually deals with birth rates and the whole contraceptive mentality, as he clearly says it's not the solution. So having less poor people doesn't make poverty less of a problem. What we need to do is share better. But I think that's as close as you get to actually dealing with a specific thing.
Peter. In the document, I think it is, Lumen Gentium, it speaks about how the lay people are called to live the, sorry, there's through with their food, the evangelical counsels of poverty, chastity and obedience. Now, I know that we talk a lot about chastity and sometimes about obedience, but I never really hear us talk about poverty as lay people. How can we, as laity, live poverty in such a way that, I guess, like you're doing, you say that you're pretty much near the poverty line when you get rid of the money for the children. How can we live that as lay people?
So I'd just like to say, I don't believe I'm in poverty, anywhere near poverty myself. When I go home from this, if they were awake when I get there, I'd have 8 children jumping on me, so I'm the richest guy that I could possibly be. However, I'm also filthy. Like, I have disposable income, which is my parents wouldn't have dreamed of. Even my parents wouldn't have dreamed of. We're in a situation where it's absurdly, we're absurdly wealthy. I think Francis is calling us to a spiritual poverty, and it's not just, oh, I don't care about wealth. The quickest way to figure out if you don't care about wealth is consider giving it up. All of it. Just consider it. I noticed there were several people who started twitching then, including me, I have to say, because I really like my computer games, and the top-end computer games taken is a bit of a shame. There is actually a simplicity which is foreign to our current environment. You think about what's the most predominant thing affecting your decision-making? I should say this clearer. What do you think the most research in terms of influencing your buying, your attitude to things, the most research, the most money, the most effort goes into advertising? There is much, much more research and effort put into advertising than there is into most movies or other things like that. What are they trying to do? They're trying to make you unhappy with your current stuff because they want you to buy more stuff. Okay? That's their aim. It's clearly stated. They want to make you unhappy with your stuff so you can buy more stuff. And the way they do that is convince you that you are not quite as cool or as sexy or as wonderful or as successful or as alive as you could possibly be. And in fact, much more so in America than here, but sometimes it's getting to the point where it's almost fearful. If you don't buy this product, maybe all the other people will be sexy and you won't. Or why do you think that's another rant, let's not go there. The point is that I think advertising is actually a profoundly unhealthy anthropology. In other words, it's teaching us something about ourselves that we're not worth anything, or we are less than complete in the way we are now. And Francis is saying, it'd be actually kind of cool if you had enough food and shelter and community and a good job just to do that all your life and never buy anything else. To actually just tick along and enjoy the beautiful, true meaning of life. You listen to even the movies try to do this. Someone's on their deathbed, they're not going to go, I wish I bought that Nintendo. It's about relationships. It's about what they've given to the whole world. It's about how they've acted, what their life was like. And we act almost the rest of our lives as if it's about the next thing that we can get, or the next stuff, or paying the mortgage, or whatever it is. Francis is just saying stuff doesn't matter. It's things and wealth serve people. You use things and love people. You don't love things and use people. And it's a pretty simple message. And basically he's saying, this is the actual true path to happiness. This is happiness when we stop having to have stuff to be happy. Where we can be happy right where we are now because God has given us everything.
Another question over here.
Hello, Peter. First, I'd like to say that I agree with most of what you said, and yeah, we talked about big ideas and stuff like this, and I'd like you to talk about all the little stuff that we can all do together from now.
You mean in terms of what Francis has said?
Environmental
awareness
solutions
yep.
and stuff like this.
Not being a scientist or an economist or any of those things, I'm not going to attempt to deal with political solutions because they are actually, I mean, Francis himself actually says, we need experts to do this. I'm not the expert, he says. We need to listen to the experts, but we need to have a will behind the solutions. We can really only look at solutions proposed in a moral sense, because we all have that moral sense, and make sure we're not sacrificing one good thing for another, because killing babies and old people might reduce the problem in terms of the impact on our work in Australia, but it has a massive moral impact on everything else. One thing I would say, and this is a bit radical, I say this to all my students by the way, if you want to increase your IQ by 10 points overnight, or perhaps over a month, stop watching free-to-air television. Okay. Not only do you eliminate the brain drain that happens, and you actually have lots more time on your hands to read, there's a concept, you might even have time to read about PC, but the main thing that you'll stop is being passively bombarded by this mentality that you must buy in order to be worth something. You think that you can filter it out, but I honestly think personally...
You're only worth what you have without money, like when you have no more money.
And the reason they're telling you that is obvious, because they want you to buy stuff. But unless what we're selling, unless what we're buying, is actually a genuine contribution to human life, human flourishing, maybe we just don't need it. Maybe we just don't need that extra thing. Maybe we don't need to update that thing because the old one still works. Maybe there is, in fact, a place for people to build things that don't break after 2 years. Wouldn't that be nice to have something that doesn't break after 6 months or 2 years? And encourage that and look for that. Now, it's more costly. I don't know if you've ever tried to do the whole buy local thing, but actually requiring people to make something that's going to last, it's pain at first. But it's always hard to start a new trend. It's always hard to do something new. I think, honestly, we're going to have to bear a bit of what we think is cost, but frankly, someone in Africa might think we're, oh no, half of your massive income is gone. The attitude will start with not allowing ourselves to be convinced, and then we'll make positive choices towards things that actually last and matter.
Thanks for the talk. Along the same line, I was just thinking, I really like how this encyclical quote, has a real holistic outlook. It's not just focused on trees and flowers. You said it's asking about the whole person. So I was wondering, as I said, along the same lines, what are some good examples, or perhaps even good organisations or things we can do? Because I mean, the big picture stuff like trying to solve the industrial revolution or trying to solve ecological problems are not really within our reach, or within most of our reaches. So yeah, just thinking, what are some good examples to get involved with and get involved in that wonder that you were talking about?
I think we underestimate the impact we have on people around us. A very simple life, lived well, morally, with genuine concern for people around, can have a massive impact. That's the starting point, I would say. Most people's impact on the world is not limited by resources, but limited by the fact they're so busy looking for resources, they forget to do things about people, what is good and true and beautiful. I can't help coming to mind of a dear friend who died yesterday, and he's a very, very good priest, an excellent gentleman, one of the few amazing gentlemen in the world. Never had much himself, but gave of himself constantly, and he's had such an impact on such an astounding number of people that you see that even in his simple life, he's had that impact on huge number of people. I think if we change our attitude towards all of the things we've talked about and simply live as if it doesn't matter, people actually are attracted to the truth. So even if there's only a small group of people, let's say, how many people here? There's a small group of people who actually can get by in life without having to have the particular brand of aftershave which makes all the girls jump on you in the lift, or having to have whatever's advertising, or the big, the $150,000 car instead of the little beatbox. All of these things, if there's a small group of people who actually are deeply satisfied with life, with the simple things, and actually take joy in the simple pleasures, not neglecting themselves and being all Spartan, but actually taking joy in a cheese and crackers with friends or something, then I think that people who are running the rat race will look around and go, hey, I want some of what they're having. I want some of that joy, because I'm feeling empty and constantly badgered and constantly overwhelmed by this endless race towards stuff. That's the first thing. The second thing, I think, is if we let people know what's important to us. I'm one of these annoying people who makes a habit of writing to my MP every single election and telling them precisely what I care about and what I'll be voting on. I don't react to events like just special topics. I just tell them, these are the issues I'm going to be testing you on, and this is why I'm voting that way. Now, I'm not asking you to agree with me, but if you make that clear, then you're not allowing the media to tell the politicians what we all think. You get active. We've got access to everyone nowadays. We can do this. And honestly, just little things. I mean, even in our workplaces, the fact that I actually made a decision not to print Pope Francis's 40,000 word documents and bring it here today. So I thought bringing 70-something pages to something on ecology was probably against the idea of the talk. But just little things, making those little decisions which actually do end up making a difference. When I started working in the corporate world some years ago, nobody was conscious about recycling. Not one person, and now it's in almost every workplace. That happened because individuals got excited about it, and they pushed management until management went, oh, all right, and did something. I think just gentle and sensible approaches and the way we live personally.
Thank you for your talk. You spoke in your talk about progress and where we orientate that progress towards. The church in Australia, for example, I think in the last 50 years, mass attendance has gone from about 76% to 11%. Not many people go to confession and things like this. Do you think it's a luxury to talk about progress in terms of the environment when Catholics, the reality is most of them don't actually believe in God and things like that? What would you...
Well, Francis is tying everything together. So he's saying, for example, this is a moral problem. And what he's noticed is in those countries where mass attendance is way down and people are acting this way, they tend to be the countries where they're exploiting the resources most ruthlessly at the expense of other countries. Well, if you look at the stats around the world, there isn't actually a decline in Catholicism, there's a growth. And where are they growing? They're growing in those countries where they're very, very poor, or when the issues of life and death are very clear. So in Africa, for example, if you look at the growth in terms of just priests and religious and bishops and dioceses, it's almost exponential growth upwards. In places in South America where they have a clarity of understanding of the real issues. Francis is, in a sense, it's understandable that the Western world has almost universally risen up against this encyclical and gone, no, it's wrong, it's awful, look at him, he's a greenie. Because it's actually directed more at the people using the resources immorally. And he's directing it at us to say, not to say, don't worry about mass attendance, but recycle, all right? That's not his approach, because he's coming back to live good, holy lives in God's grace. And he says, and Benedict, he's actually echoing Benedict when he says this, if we get our human ecology right, namely living right in marriages, before God, etc., then the environment will follow. The priority for a Catholic is to get our human ecology right, to live before God with good grace and with good conscience, and then the rest of it flows. Why? Because when we understand who God is and who we are, it comes from that. I think he's trying to wake up some Catholics who've forgotten that in our country, one of the reasons we're so complacent is we've taken it for granted. And unfortunately, in history, when Catholics get comfortable, we stop caring. And we are about as comfortable as we've been for a long time in terms of the country. It's a wake-up call. It's a very uncomfortable wake-up call. And I think it's drawing us back to the centre, which is Christ, and he constantly brings us back to Christ. But I think you're right. It won't be enough to just recycle or do something like that. It has to come back to being an appreciation and wonder for God himself.
Ladies and gents, please put your hands together for Peter Holmes. Thank you, Peter. For those of you who want to check out the encyclical, it's obviously online for free. Probably might be better if you read it online rather than print it out. One of the questions I think Luke asked it was about the evangelical councils. Reminded me of a time I was visiting Denver a few years ago and for a holiday, and I was invited to have dinner with some friends of mine who are seminarians in the St. John Vianney Seminary. And it was during Lent, and it was on a Friday, so all the Catholics eat on Friday during Lent. So we had fish. This seminary was actually renowned for having a 6-star chef. So having this particular fish on a Friday was not a problem, but it made one of the seminarians remark and say, well, if this is poverty and obedience, bring on chastity. So, it takes a while for you to get that. It was a great talk tonight. A couple of events, a little bit of a heads up of what's coming up in the next week or so. This Wednesday night, one of the things actually discussed in the Pope's encyclical, which is being constantly discussed in our media and politics and all different angles, is the same-sex marriage debate. And so this Wednesday evening, Archbishop Anthony Fisher, I'll be giving a talk for the Order of Malta. That's at the Cathedral Hall, which is just next to St. Mary's Cathedral. Someone will be able to tell me the time, 6:30, 7, something. Check it out on Facebook. Just type in Order of Malta marriage talk. It'll probably be after the 5:30 p.m. Mass. So feel free to head along to that. I've also been given the heads up that there's already a growing grassroots movement of young people who are getting energized and trying to find ways of understanding the issues about marriage even more and how to share those in truth and love with our friends in a whole variety of ways. So I'm sure you'll be able to find out details about that at the talk if you go to it on Wednesday night as well. I mentioned I was overseas recently. I was over there at the end of the trip with a group of about 40 or 50 other people from Sydney and from around the country for the Archbishop who was receiving his pallium from the Holy Father on the feast of St. Peter and Paul, which is the feast day of Rome. So that's the pallium is the woolen thing that the archbishops wear around themselves. They get basically from the Holy Father soon after they're named new archbishops. There were about 40 or 42 archbishops around the world who gathered in Rome for that special mass in which Archbishop Anthony can celebrate with the Pope. A different tradition, usually the Pope actually gives the pallium to the archbishops at that Mass, so he confers it onto them while he blesses them. On this occasion, the Pope decided to bless the palliums there in Rome, and then they were to take the palliums back to their local metropolitan archdiocese, where a special Mass would be held where the Apostolic Nuncio, representing the Holy Father, would confer on them the pallium with local and nearby bishops and other dioceses. So that's actually happening this Saturday at St. Mary's Cathedral. And I've heard there's already a number of young people who are praying the night before and the lead up to it for the Archbishop during adoration after the 5:30 p.m. Mass this Friday. So if you would like to either pray for the Archbishop this Friday evening at St. Mary's Cathedral after the 5:30 p.m. Mass, or you're all very warmly welcome and invited to come to the Pallium Mass on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. at St. Mary's Cathedral. What else did I have to mention? Yes, the next Theology on Tap event, we're going to go on a bit of a hiatus for 1 month. That's not because I'm lazy and I haven't organised the next one. I'll make partly be that as well. But next month, on Wednesday, the 19th of August, block this in your diaries. I can't tell you all about it now because the full range of speakers haven't been confirmed yet for the event. We're 4 down, 1 to go. But there is a very exciting event taking place at Notre Dame University on Wednesday evening, 19th of August. So put that in your diaries. I'll be sending out more information about that event and who will be involved in it as well, but you will not want to miss it once you see it. So that's it. So that means the next Theology on Tap will kick back off most likely the first Monday of September, but I'll keep you all informed via Facebook and the internet about that. So once again, please thank Peter Holmes for a wonderful talk tonight.